We gaan nu luisteren naar de ideeën van Graham. Nogmaals, ik wens jullie een fijn 2016. Graham, may I ask you to join me here to take the floor and tell us about the State of the Union. That's the way it's called in the United States. The State of the Republic in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, thank you.
Graham,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction and also the invitation to come along this evening. We are part of this alliance of European Republican movements, which has been a really exciting experience over the last few years, meeting people from 7 countries around Europe that have monarchies, the unfortunate 7 that didn't manage to get rid of them in the last 200 years. But there's been a lot of progress over the last few years since we brought that alliance together, because I think we've all kind of learned quite a lot from each other. And it's really exciting to see this organisation and the others, and ourselves as well, making progress and having these opportunities to meet each other. We are a bit bigger as an organisation, and we're doing, I think, pretty well. And I'll say a few words about what we're doing, but we're still relatively small. We've still got quite a way to go. But we are pretty clear that we are going to win, and we are going to bring down the British monarchy. That is going to happen. The question is when, not if. Now, what we try and do is sort of pick out different little issues and things that we can challenge the monarchy on, because I think a lot of people in the country, in Britain, tend to assume that the monarchy is just sort of a hangover, it's just a decoration that means nothing to them, and so on. One of the odd things that we picked out, which was in the papers just after Christmas, was that Prince Charles has the right to cause nuclear explosions in Britain, which is slightly worrying, but he has that right because he's the Duke of Cornwall. Which gives him rights also to ignore and to bypass a whole host of different laws, which do actually have more serious implications for the rest of us in terms of planning, environmental protection and so on. So here's a man who owns a lot of land. He has a big business called the Duchy of Cornwall, and he doesn't pay tax, and he does have all sorts of rights and privileges in law for no reason other than the fact that he is the son of our head of state. So we try and focus on these things and make a big issue of them in the media. Last year was a really good year for us. It was the first year of our new strategy that we developed in 2014. 2014 was a time when we did a lot of reviewing of what we do and how we do it. And that was the first year after we'd had 3 years of huge royal events. So 2011 we had the royal wedding. 2012 we had the Jubilee, the 60th anniversary of our Queen being our head of state. And 2013 we had the first royal baby of William and Kate. And all of those events were really good for us. All of those events helped us get more members, more media, more exposure, and to learn a great deal about how we can campaign and how we can get our message out there. So then when we paused after that, looked at what we were doing, developed a long-term strategy, and started that 1 year ago. And we had a 50% increase in our income last year, a big jump in members, and despite there not being any particularly large royal events, we carried on getting into the press and into the media. The year started with Prince Andrew, the Queen's second eldest son, getting into trouble, having various questionable relationships with people that were in some legal difficulty over various abuse allegations. That sort of went a little bit quiet, but then we had an election, a general election, and we raised quite a lot of questions about why the Queen is there, because the Queen is our head of state, and in the UK she has a role to play in appointing the Prime Minister, and we had an election which was predicted, as it turns out wrongly, but predicted to create a very messy and difficult result, where there was some confusion as to which party leader was going to be the rightful Prime Minister. And that's where a head of state can actually play a role in sort of pulling things together, as they would in places like Italy and Greece. So we raised questions around that, and really said, well, the Queen has made it quite clear in the last election and the 2010 election that actually, if there is any difficulty, she doesn't want to know. she doesn't want to get involved, which begs the question, why are we paying her the money if she doesn't want to do the job? So, you know, we were quite clear that if she's not prepared to do that basic constitutional role, then it's time to move out. We continue to sort of challenge the royal finances as well. We've done a really good royal finance report. Every year the British royals come out with a report that says that they cost us £35 million or thereabouts. They then divide that by every man, woman and child in the country and then say, well, there you go, it's only 55 pence per person. So what are you worrying about? Now our finance report puts the bill at around £334 million a year, and then we divide that by each member of the royal family, which makes it about £18 million each, which is a lot more expensive than our Prime Minister or any MP. And it's also enough money to pay for 15,000 new police officers, for example, and 15,000 new nurses. So when you start putting it in those terms, then it starts to get noticed. And we've been doing this for a few years now, and that figure does get reported quite widely at the time of those finances coming out. So that is that kind of action that starts to get you noticed and starts to get people talking to you and gets you onto the TV. There was actually one royal birth. I keep forgetting this because it feels like a long time ago, but Kate and William had a second child last year. But it happened 1 week out from the election, so the media still, despite the fact that we were literally less than a week out from a general election, they decided to stop talking about the election for an entire day and spend the entire day talking about the baby. So, but we managed to get onto the TV, onto the news channels, and essentially we were on there telling the media to stop talking about it. Obviously, ironically, we wanted them to talk about it a little bit so that we can get on and tell them to stop talking about it, but that then led to some of the press then attacking the BBC for letting me on to talk about the fact that they were still talking about it. So, but it is another opportunity to raise our profile. The issue sort of picked up a little bit later in the year for two reasons. Firstly, the Queen in September, I think it was, became the longest reigning monarch that we've ever had. She became a longer reigning monarch than Queen Victoria. Now, we said this in 2012 when she celebrated 60 years on the throne, that being on the throne for that long is not a reason for celebration. I think that anywhere around the world, if you see any head of state who's been on the throne or been in office for over 60 years, it's probably a sign that there is something very wrong. And absence of free and fair elections is probably what is the problem. So we challenged the whole sort of logic of celebrating that milestone. And the BBC actually came to us and said, well, they've got this politics programme in sort of midweek politics programme. And every week they ask someone to do like a little 2-minute film, and they came to us and said, would you like to do that 2-minute film? So we worked with the BBC to make that 2-minute film, essentially saying, look, this isn't something to celebrate, and here are the problems with the monarchy. And our point is very simple, and our argument is, our pitch is very simple, and you can narrow it down to 2 minutes, which is that it's wrong in principle. We're supposed to be a democratic society. It's wrong in practice. This is an institution that is, clearly abusing money, abusing privilege, abusing access to ministers, and it's wrong for our politics. And this is something which may not be entirely applicable here, but certainly in the UK, the monarchy is very much part of our political system, and it not only gives our royals access to power and to influence, but it also gives our Prime Minister enormous amounts of power. He can exercise the powers of the Crown, including going to the Buckingham Palace and taking part in what's called the Privy Council and making laws in Buckingham Palace without worrying about having to go to Parliament. So that little film was quite useful, and the issue of the access and the power of the royal family has also been coming up on a number of occasions. So at the beginning of the year, the Guardian newspaper finally won a 10-year fight to access some letters that Prince Charles had written to government ministers. It took 10 years to win this fight. They were given access to 27 letters in which Prince Charles was lobbying ministers to change government policy. despite the fact that he's not supposed to be doing anything political whatsoever because he's a prince. But in that 10-year period, the government changed the law to basically now mean that you cannot get access to any other letters. But we have proof that Prince Charles is lobbying and interfering in politics, but we have no way of knowing beyond those 27 letters what that lobbying is doing. And then towards the end of the year, we actually got hold of information from the government through Freedom of Information laws, which showed that Prince Charles has complete access to all government papers. Every government paper, cabinet paper, is sent to him so that he can have a look at it, which is more access than government ministers have, and it raises a whole load of serious questions, given that he is a landowner, a businessman, a developer, but also he's someone with his own political agenda on the environment, on education and so on. So not only does he have the access to talk to ministers, he also has the information so that he can lobby effectively and in secret. And that, when we released that information, it was headline news in the newspapers, it was all over the media. We're doing 24 hours of interviews and all the rest of it. So it was quite a big win for us. Now you may have also, I don't know whether you've heard of Jeremy Corbyn, but he became the Labour Party leader in September again, I think it was. He's a Republican, and he's not going to make a big issue of that so much as the newspapers that don't like him have tried to make a big issue of it. And he didn't sing our national anthem, because our national anthem is God Save the Queen, which has absolutely nothing to do with our nation. And that caused a huge fuss, and that then gave us lots of opportunities to talk about that. He was also equivocal about whether or not to join the Privy Council, which is the body that I mentioned before. And that also gave us plenty of opportunities to talk about that. So, yeah, we have had, as I said, a very good year, and I think that it's left us feeling a lot more optimistic than we've ever been before. We do know that this is about, of course we have to have good arguments, we have to know why we want to achieve success, but it is about getting the tactics right, it's about having people around who can get the work done, it's about having good media operations and all that kind of thing, and it's all that we're getting better at all the time. And our fundraising and our membership recruitment and so on. So that's all going upwards. We've also, Michael, my colleague here, was taken on about 18 months ago and has also played a huge part in getting a lot of that done. And we're hoping to take on a third member of staff in the next couple of months. So we are expanding and growing. And I met Steve, met Steve just here. And I just said there are now 6 people, as far as I know, in the whole world who are paid to get rid of monarchies. 3 of them are in this room, and 2 of them are in Sweden, and 1's in Australia. So the more we have, then the more effective we're all going to be doing it. And it's really exciting to see this group also growing, because I think that the more that we get headlines from Europe that the Republican movements are growing and that monarchies are being challenged, the easier it's going to be for us as well. And I think that if one of us wins, the rest of them will start to fall in quick succession. And I hope it's going to be us that wins first, and then you lot will have a much easier job. So our year ahead is absolutely packed. We've got the best organised, best planned, best prepared plan that we've ever had this year. We're going to do a lot more stuff on royal secrecy. We're going to do more talking to MPs. We're going to be talking about the Duchy of Cornwall, Prince Charles's company that really belongs to us. We're going to call for that to be renationalised. We're making a film at the moment about that, so hopefully that'll be done by the end of the year. We are going to do a little bit here and there about the House of Lords. Our upper house is an absolute joke and needs to be abolished. We've got the Queen's 90th birthday coming up. We don't mind her turning 90. We don't have a problem with her having birthdays, but we do have a problem with the way in which it's being celebrated. They've just announced that they're going to have a large garden party, or street party I should say, in the Mall, that huge street leading up to Buckingham Palace. And you have to put your name into a lottery, and if you're lucky enough to win, then you get a place for which you have to then pay £150. Now, quite why the Queen can't stump up the money to cover that, I have no idea, but there you go. So we'll probably have something to say about that as well. And we're going to be talking about, again, the finances, because The grant that they give to the royals every year is being reviewed in the next couple of months. And this is one of the maddest things about the monarchy. They agreed this grant. Its level is pegged to the value of, or the profits of, something called the Crown Estate, which is a landed estate that belongs to the nation. And the way it works is if the value of the Crown Estate goes up, the grant that we give to the palace goes up. If the value of the Crown Estate goes down, the grant that we give to the palace stays the same. So that's a nice little earner for them. I have no idea why it's pegged to that at all. There's no proper budgeting or decision making around how much money we give them. We just throw it at them and say, yeah, get on and spend it as you wish. So we really want to challenge that, particularly at the moment in the UK, as it is in many countries. Public services, public spending, it's all being squeezed. People are losing jobs, having their salaries frozen, and when we see the royals spending millions of pounds on their own houses, their own travels, flying around the UK in helicopters on public money, I think that's something which a lot of people get outraged about, whether or not they like the Queen or support the monarchy. And that is my last point, is that the public are not massive royalists. Most people in the UK don't care. The opinion polls, they don't say, do you care? They say, do you want to keep the monarchy or get rid of it? And most people at the moment say, let's keep it, because they think that it's harmless, they don't think it is involved in politics, they think that everybody else likes it, and for some reason they think it's good for tourism, which it isn't. It simply has no impact on tourism whatsoever. But, on the whole, people don't care that much. And it's our job to say, well, actually, there is a reason to care, but not in the way you might think. There is a reason to care because it's a bad thing for Britain. And there are many, many good reasons for getting rid of it. And there's a really positive, exciting, and aspirational alternative, which is called a democratic republic. And I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we can get there, and that we will one day have a Europe that is entirely free of monarchies, kings, queens, and princes. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. There are many, many parallels between your situation and ours. We hope to learn from you this weekend. You're here the rest of the evening, so if people have questions, please go to him and ask him. And I hope we have a nice meeting today. We have a bill at the bar, so please order anything you like. There's some snacks going around. And please have a nice evening and have a safe journey home. You can ask him something.
Well, is it correct, Mr. Smith, that the Queen of Great Britain profited the most of the agricultural subsidies from Brussels? I mean the most, more than everyone else, because of the fact that she owns a lot of land. And I've been reading that really the profit that she gets from Brussels, and it is very interesting in comparison with the Brexit tendency. Everyone could start to defend the Brexit because of such an argument.
I don't know.
Is that more or less correct?
I don't know that. I mean, I think there's often some confusion about who owns what land in the UK. So yes, the royals do claim a lot of agricultural subsidies because they are landowners, and they play the role of landowners. The land actually belongs to us, but they own the Duchy of Cornwall and the Duchy of Lancaster, and they claim agricultural subsidies from the EU. But a lot of the land that you might be thinking of is Crown land, which is actually owned and operated by either by the state directly or by other tenants and so on. So I'm not entirely clear what the division is there, and I don't know that they are the largest claimants, but they certainly get a lot of money off the EU for agriculture, absolutely.